So I probably could have written a whole review on this game just from memory. That's how much I love it. Let's jump into it. So Psychonauts is a game that came out in 2006 and is one of the first games I really got into as a kid. It's honestly one of the only games I can consistently play repeatedly and still enjoy. So let's talk about what it is, some pros and cons, and why I think it still holds up in 2021. It's a game where you play as Raz, a kid with psychic abilities who crashes Whispering Rock, a psychic summer camp for kids. He really wants to become a psychonaut, and that's a secret agent who handles missions, traversing people's minds, psychic abilities. As the story goes on, you're tasked with finding out why villains are stealing the brains of your fellow campers. The premise sounds interesting on paper, but the execution is really well done. The game works so well because of its well-written characters. Each character feels distinct, not just in their look, but their attitude and psychic abilities. You'll interact with fellow campers, psychic counselors, and even a talking lungfish. Each character feels exceptionally well designed, especially when you start traversing their minds. The first mind you traverse is the camp's coach, Coach Oleander. He sees the psychic and mental plane as a battlefield, so that's what you have to experience. And right off the bat, even in the coach's mind, you start to unravel the mystery of the story. From there, you're chosen by another psychonaut named Sasha 9, and he's kind of like the stereotypical secret agent / spy you might expect to see in a spy agency. Very logical and precise, and that reflects in his mind. He starts to train you as a psychonaut and starts sending you on your missions. I think the strongest aspect of the game is the level design in each character's mind. It's a direct reflection of how they can perceive the world and how they view themselves. The mental world for each character is also filled with secrets and collectibles that flesh out their character and provide tangible upgrades for Raz. One of the best examples of character building in a mind is the vault. Each vault contains a slideshow of a character's memories, either giving you some backstory or how they perceive others. Some of these also give light to darker aspects of the cast. A big example of this is traversing Mia's mind. She seems like an eccentric partygoer who loves the disco. Her whole mental plane is actually a disco club that you have to traverse. However, as you start to explore, you can find more about her past. Initially, it seems that her memories are mainly of adventures with Sasha as the psychonaut and how they work really well together. But one of the secret vaults you find shows a much darker backstory for her. And these backstories can evolve and develop for each mind you enter, and it creates a really good sense of world building, and that's probably one of the strongest aspects of the game. And aside from the mental plane, there's also the overworld that you can traverse and get collectibles. You can traverse through the summer camp and its surrounding areas to find psychic upgrade cards, arrowheads, and scavenger items. Sometimes it does feel like a grind to acquire these things, especially the arrowheads, which you need to buy some critical mission items from the camp store. However, everything you do in the overworld can help directly influence your progression, which is really nice. There's also a lot of secrets you can find and conversations you can have with NPCs to flesh out their characters even more. And now that I've gushed a lot about the character design and the world, I want to talk a little bit about the combat. And as a psychic cadet, Raz can receive various psychic powers throughout the game, which can help you in combat and with world traversal. You receive these powers pretty frequently, essentially one per mind you explore, and each one feels distinct and necessary to progress. An example of a power you get is from Mia, and it's levitation, essentially the game's sprint power, and you can use it to traverse the world and get to even higher parts of the camp that you could not do previously. But aside from the world traversal powers, there are a lot of abilities to help you in combat, and overall the combat is pretty simple throughout the game. You can use your various psychic abilities to attack or protect yourself, either shoot side beams, go invisible, or have a shield, and some others. And you don't really fight a ton of enemies outside the mini boss and main boss fights. A lot of the traversing through the world is puzzles, and most of the typical enemies you can find can be disposed of pretty easily. It's mainly the bosses I found that can take a little while to figure out their patterns and how to defeat them. Each one kind of has its own special gimmick where you can use your psychic abilities in really interesting ways. And mainly with the combat, I don't have a lot of negatives. The game can feel sometimes a little outdated mechanically, and I think that's really just a product of it being 15 years old. A boss fight that really stuck out to me as outdated was in the Milkman conspiracy level. You have to use your clairvoyance ability to see through the boss's eyes to do damage to her after she turns off the lights. This is probably one of the only negative combat experiences I had because of how clairvoyance works and the size of the boss's hitbox. I felt like the vision, seeing through her eyes, kind of made it hard to aim when you were trying to hit her. Other than that, I think the combat is really solid and definitely a good way to help pad out some of the traversal in the world. And now that I've talked about my overall impressions of the game, I didn't really want to get into spoilers much in case you do want to check this out. But I do want to talk about whether or not I think this game holds up in 2021. Like I said, this game came out in 2005, 2006, and can feel a little outdated sometimes. But overall, I think if you like games with a lot of exploration and collectibles and well-designed characters, I do think it will be really enjoyable, especially if you've seen any of the trailers for the sequel, which comes out later this month. So overall, you can buy the game on Steam or the Windows Store for PC or Xbox. It actually comes in Xbox GamePass because the sequel does as well. And I definitely think the game holds up graphically if you play on a modern system, especially the new series of Xbox with Auto HDR. I noticed the moment-to-moment gameplay using Auto HDR definitely boosted the graphics and the colors, which I think really complements the art style of this game. Unfortunately, since the Xbox Series X version is just a ported Xbox game, it's only in a 4:3 aspect ratio. That didn't really detract from my enjoyment because it's how I played the game when I was a kid, and I didn't really mind it. On Steam, or if you get it through the Windows Store on PC, you don't have that issue. You can set the aspect ratio to 16:9 if you want to, and you have kind of the standard PC graphic settings as well. And overall, I definitely think this game is worth a pickup if you enjoy games like this. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. If you ever want to talk games with me more, you can find me on Twitch, where I try to stream Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and where I'll definitely be streaming Psychonauts 2 when it releases. Thanks for watching and have a good one.